Welcome to the world of YAFSIGA, a low fantasy, diceless skirmish game for 2 players brought to you by Blacksite Studio. An eldritch phenomena called the Bloom has swiftly brought calamity to the kingdom of YAFSIGA, leaving behind ruins and silence amidst an eerie eternal spring. Players will build a warband that will face off against their rivals to secure treasure, knowledge, and territory in this perilous no-man's land, hoping to claim the spoils of victory and earn great renown upon their return from this death trap now known as the Bloom's Reach. In this video, we will cover everything needed to set up a game of YAFSIGA. We will additionally cover the basic flow of play for a standard game. And if you need to skip around the video for any particular information, feel free to use the timestamps below. Without further ado, let's get started. Playing a game of YAFSIGA requires a few key materials. To start, you'll need some miniatures of 28mm scale. These can be procured via your local game store or borrowed from your own collection. And of course, you can find expertly sculpted YAFSIGA specific miniatures provided by us here at Blacksite Studio. You'll also need a single deck of playing cards. Any deck will do, as long as its suits are easily legible and it contains at least 2 jokers. A measuring implement is important, like a ruler or a tape measure, as it will help you determine valid ranges for your attacks and help you accurately move your miniatures. Each player needs a roster sheet, which keeps track of their warband statistics during play. You can find the roster in the rulebook to photocopy, or download the free roster PDF from the YAFSIGA resources page pinned in this video's description. Tokens are a must, as they are used to track damage, status effects, and help mark out points of interest like objectives. You can get your own premium token sheets at blacksitestudio.com, or snag some quick print and play tokens from YAFSIGA's resources page. Lastly, you'll need a place to play the game. YAFSIGA was designed for and tested on a 2x2 foot play space, but feel free to play on any space that suits you and your opponent, especially something like a kitchen table. It's a good idea to spruce up your play space with some terrain, especially from Blacksite Studio's own fantasy line. YAFSIGA leans heavily on player-created warbands, where every model's stats, abilities, and equipment are determined by their player. Let's have a look at how to build our roster, which keeps track of all of these things for us. Each player's roster starts with 4 unit profiles available to fill: your ace, king, queen, and jack. They are all built the same way, so for brevity's sake, we'll show you how to complete one profile of your roster. In this case, we'll build this roster's ace. Some aspects of a profile, like upgrades and gear, require renown, the list building resource of YAFSIGA, to be paid in order to gain their benefits. An average game of YAFSIGA grants each player 20 renown to spend. Before determining anything else about a profile, your first decision must be whether or not the unit the profile belongs to is a squad or a solo. This choice determines how many models belong to that unit. If the unit is a squad, it begins the game with 3 models that have 2 wounds apiece. If it's a solo, the unit is instead a single model with 4 wounds. The ace, however, is special. It must be assigned as a solo, but it comes with a few perks. It automatically gains an additional wound and gains additional access to the command ability at no cost. After determining your unit's designation, we can then assign it an archetype. Archetypes are unique abilities that can be assigned to profiles at no cost. They are, however, restricted to whether or not a profile is a squad or a solo, while our ace gains additional access to some ace-specific archetypes. Let's give it the Thane archetype for now. After filling in our profile's archetype, we can assign some stats to it. To start, each profile begins with a base move value of 4 inches. Players then assign the values of 7, 6, and 5 in any order they like to the physique, skill, and willpower stats. These stats determine your unit's likelihood of success performing certain tasks, with the higher number indicating a higher likelihood of success. It's a good idea to assign the 7 to whatever stat you think the profile will use most. A melee brawler will need a stout physique, a nimble archer will need exemplary skill, and a scholarly spellcaster requires unshakable will. Conversely, the 5 can be assigned to whatever stat you think the profile will utilize the least, with the 6 serving as a good middle ground. After determining your profile's physique, skill, and willpower, you then determine the volume of the unit's profile. This determines the size of the unit's base, or bases in the case of a squad. For this demonstration, we'll say that this ace is of a medium volume. Medium volumes cost no renown, and they give you a +1 save bonus. The save bonus is the last of our stat block, and provides a modest bump to our unit's save whenever they become the target of a successful attack. They gain a +1 bonus for merely being medium in size, and can further increase this number with the purchase of equipment and other upgrades. Speaking of equipment, we need to give our Thane a weapon. There are many melee and ranged weapons in YAFSIGA, all of which serve specific purposes. We'll pay 1 renown to give our Thane a modest polearm, a very proficient and cheap jack-of-all-trades armament. It has a weight value of 1, which means our Thane can wield it without issue. A profile's total weight cannot exceed its physique. The polearm has a maximum range of 1 inch. It has a burst of 2, a power bonus of +4, and a damage profile of 2/3. Burst, power bonus, and damage are all important combat stats, and will be elaborated on when we cover combat later in this series. The polearm also has a keyword, piercing 1. This means that it reduces the target's save bonus by 1 while attacking with this weapon. There are many other keywords assigned to other weapons that help define their utility, and this is a fine example of where the polearm shines. Finally, we can purchase all manner of equipment and upgrades to fill out the profile with additional bonuses. Each costs a set amount of renown and will have a weight value associated with it, similar to how we purchased and equipped our profile's primary weapon. With that, we have now completed 1 profile. You can follow the same steps we just covered to complete the remaining profiles in your roster, and once your roster is full, you are ready to begin your first game of YAFSIGA. Now that you and your opponent have everything you need to play, it's time to set up your first game. Terrain is crucial in YAFSIGA, and providing ample surface for your models to strategize around, clamber across, and conquer is an absolute must. Line of sight obstruction is key, and a good rule of thumb is to fill up a foot by a foot of terrain pieces, then distribute them evenly across your play space. While you can absolutely use any items at your disposal for terrain, like books and cups, premium MDF terrain is available on our website to elevate your play experience, both figuratively and literally. After setting up the table, players split the set-aside deck of playing cards into 3 stacks. The red court, consisting of 2 aces, 2 kings, 2 queens, 2 jacks, and the joker of diamonds and hearts. And the black court, which consists of 2 aces, 2 kings, 2 queens, 2 jacks, and the joker of clubs and spades. And the third stack, which we will call the chaos deck. Each player will take a court stack as a hand of cards. These cards will be used to issue orders to their units over the course of the game. Remaining cards form the chaos deck, which is shuffled and set aside within easy reach of players. This deck will be drawn from to determine the success or failure of attacks, skills, and saves performed by units over the course of the game. Players then each flip a card from the top of the chaos deck. The player with the higher card determines whether they will be the attacker or the defender. After determining such, players will generate a scenario using YAFSIGA's bespoke scenario generator. To begin scenario setup, players first determine their deployment by drawing a card from the deployment stack. They place markers to note the areas of deployment, then follow the instructions on the card. After both players have deployed, they then draw a card from the objective stack to determine what nature of game they will play. Instructions usually involve the placement of objective tokens, which will influence the goal for their game. With objectives placed, a twist is then drawn. This is a random bane or boon that affects the game in unexpected ways, forcing both players to adapt to the shifting nature of the Bloom's Reach. Finally, 2 motives are drawn. These are side objectives that allow players to score incidental points that can turn the tide of the battle in their favor. These motives are replenished with new ones when scored, providing a constant supply of new, unexpected ways to score points alongside your main goal. Now that you've set up, it's time to play. An average game of YAFSIGA is played over a series of 3 rounds, with each round consisting of 3 phases: the upkeep phase, the activation phase, and the conquest phase. In the upkeep phase, players resolve any lingering status effects from the previous round. There isn't much upkeep to do in the first round of the game, so play moves to the activation phase. During this phase, players alternate playing court cards from their hand to activate the corresponding unit on the battlefield. Activations consist of 2 simple actions, or 1 complex action performed by the activating unit, and the activation is considered complete once those actions are resolved. When both players have played as many court cards as they can, play then proceeds to the conquest phase. In this phase, players place banner tokens to claim territory, refresh the chaos deck, and score points according to the motives and main objective. After the 3rd and final conquest phase, points are tallied, and the warband that meets the objective's victory condition is considered the winner of the skirmish. This concludes our overview of YAFSIGA. Stay tuned for the next video in our gameplay series, where we detail a more elaborate breakdown of a turn, cover combat and spellcasting, and talk about the benefits and downsides of choosing to declare your unit a squad or a solo. Until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.